This one is called Future World, a science fiction and a thriller. Future World. At a game show called The Big Bundle, a contestant named Ron Thurlow jumps with glee after winning $50,000. Oh yeah. Now, apart from the cash prize, the host reveals that Ron also won a trip to an extravagant resort called Delos, where he can interact with realistic robots in 4 different theme parks, my friends. Oh yeah, I mean, you would love to go there, would you not? Now, in this futuristic world called Roman World, he can walk around with beautiful robot women and simulate fights with robot gladiators. Next, the guests can live with kings in a reconstruction of the 13th century Europe in the medieval world. And then there's Spa World. Their old age and pain are eliminated as they explode and explore in the garden of pleasure. Finally, guests like Ron can explore the solar system and command their own rocket ship, baby. This is Future World. Now, inside a newspaper office, a reporter named Chuck Browning gets a call from a man claiming to have a big story. Hey, I have a big story. Chuck asks him to recount the story over the phone, but the caller, Frenchy Deporte, tells him that he needs money because he's in trouble. So Chuck instructs him to meet him at the Hyatt Regency crossover in 10 minutes. When Chuck finds Frenchy at the meeting table, he discovers that he has been shot in the back. Frenchy tries to say something to him, but all he can utter are the words Delos before passing away. Days later, Chuck goes to the Delos headquarters to attend a meeting discussing the resort's operations since its recent opening. Duffy, one of the resort's administrators, points out that the resort went through a horrific, crazy event 2 years ago when a robot gunslinger suddenly attacked a guest. The Western theme park called Westworld has now a bad reputation in publicity. But Duffy notes that similar malfunctions occurred throughout the resort. A TV reporter, Tracy Ballard, asked Duffy why they didn't shut down the robot's power supply. So Duffy explains that they did, but the robots continue running on power reserves. Duffy discloses that more than 50 guests died in the incident, and 95 of their employees were either killed or wounded or disappeared by the time they regained control. Duffy laments that the public response is not as good as it once was when the resort reopened. So they contacted the IMC network and gave the reporters exclusive access to their operations. Duffy contends that all the company wants from the reporters is fair treatment. Later, Tracy goes on to confront her boss, Arthur, because he promised that Delos' story would be exclusive to her. But Arthur knows that Chuck has a different angle that he wants to pursue. Tracy is concerned that the company will revoke their exclusive access once they find out Chuck is on board because he is known for mainly reporting bad news. Arthur, however, dismisses Tracy's objections and threatens to assign her to weather and fashion news if she doesn't do as she's told. On the flight to the resort, Chuck tries to interview some of the high-profile guests, but no one wants to really talk to him. Chuck tells Tracy that there's something suspicious about the guest list because most of them are reputable men in business, science, and politics. So, I mean, something's weird. Tracy, however, argues that it's not unusual because they are the only ones who can afford to pay $1,200 a day. Ron approaches Tracy hoping that she would put him in her show. But Tracy knows that she's just going to Delos for research, so leave me alone. When they reach the resort, an employee at the control room alerts the others to the arrival of their 4 special subjects, namely General Kamnowski, Takaguchi, Chuck, and of course Tracy. Later, Duffy approaches Tracy and Chuck to inform them that they can go backstage with him after spending some time in Future World. He knows that they will be free to go anywhere they want, but he has to come with them for their safety. While Takaguchi and his assistant are changing clothes in the medieval world and its custom room, an announcer notifies them that they are not allowed to bring cameras into the theme park. Takaguchi wants to bring his father's katana, but an employee tells him that he can't use it. As they head to the theme park, Takaguchi grabs his camera from the booth and hides it under his clothes. Soon Chuck and Tracy hop on their spacesuits to go to Future World. Their robot guides take them to an enormous space shuttle where they pretend to be astronauts and simulate a space flight. Now we cut to Spa World. Karvnowski and his wife drink water that's supposed to give them back their youth. Afterward, the technicians in the control room activate the illusion of a youth sequence for the guests, making them think they're young again. As Takaguchi wanders around in medieval world, Duffy watches them from the control room and sees his aide holding the camera. He tells the technician not to fuss about it, but Duffy instructs him to program the Queen to steal the camera from them. A Saxon knight's son gets into Takaguchi's way and challenges him to a fight. After Takaguchi kills the robot knight, his aide starts taking pictures of him. Inside another control room, the technician starts scanning the bodily features of the four subjects. Back in Future World, Chuck and Tracy spend time playing chess in the amusement room inside the space station. After the game, Chuck goes on and approaches the bartender and asks him if the memory that he has is intact. The bartender assures him that he has an excellent memory. So Chuck shows him a picture that he took of Frenchie when he died. Chuck asks him if he's seen the man before, but the bartender claims he hasn't. So Chuck walks away. While Tracy and Chuck are playing a boxing game with the robot fighters, Duffy informs that it's a good time to go backstage with him. What is it with this guy and taking her backstage? Chuck remembers that he never took back Frenchie's picture, so he returns to the bartender to ask for it. However, the bartender claims that he has already returned it. Chuck accuses the bartender of lying, but the bartender stresses that he's not programmed to lie. Chuck surmises that he made a mistake and tells the bartender that it doesn't matter because he has another copy. Later, Duffy takes Chuck and Tracy to the control room where they witness Takaguchi engaging a robot knight in a fight, in a duel, in a joust. After Takaguchi defeats the robot, Dr. Morton Schneider explains that guests always win, but they try to make the fights believable. Afterward, Chuck takes Tracy to a corner and convinces her to seduce one of the employees. Tracy tries flirting with a technician, but he's too confused on his job and refrains from showing any interest. Chuck tells Duffy that their employees don't seem normal, so Duffy discloses that they're robots. Morton explains that the malfunction that occurred in Westworld 2 years ago was traced back to human error, so the company decided to replace them with machines. As Chuck and Tracy continue the tour, Chuck tells Tracy that he's getting more suspicious because Duffy didn't tell them about the robot technicians right away. I mean, he took his time and eventually wasn't even going to say anything. Tracy asserts that Duffy just forgot and argues that Chuck is being paranoid. Oh, Tracy. I would not like a woman like you. Later, Duffy takes the pair to Westworld, which has been left empty due to the previous tragedy. When Duffy allows Chuck to tour the area on his own, Chuck explores the underground tunnel, but he doesn't find anything significant. As he finds his way back to the surface, a man hiding behind the pipes observes him. While the guests prepare for bedtime, Morton instructs his technicians to finish the thermal X-ray and electrochemical studies on their 4 subjects. Later, a technician announces that drugs have already been added to the subject's food and that they have been put to sleep. The announcer instructs the employees to pick them up from the rooms and warns them that they must be returned after 5.5 hours later. Soon, men in red jumpsuits grab Tracy and Chuck and the other subjects from their rooms. They take them to separate labs to perform tests and scan their bodies. After returning them to their rooms, Tracy wakes up screaming and runs over to Chuck to tell him that she had a terrible dream of being attacked in a hospital. After Tracy comes down, she notices that Chuck is already dressed, so he explains that he's going to an unauthorized tour because he can't find anything while Duffy is following them. Chuck asks Tracy to stay in the room, but she insists on coming with him. The pair head to the tunnel systems to find a way to access restricted areas. As they explore the tunnels, a mechanic emerges from the pipes and attempts to follow them secretly. The two eventually reach the research and development area, where they come across robots being created for an upcoming theme park called East World. As they look for the lights, Chuck randomly pushes the buttons on a console and by mistake activates a machine that generates 3 samurai robots. As soon as the robots get out of the machine, they start chasing the pair. One of the robots catches up to them and tries to slash them with a sword, but Chuck manages to block it with a pipe and knock him down. As the 2 remaining samurais continue pursuing them, they run to another chamber and try to lock them out. However, the robots use their extraordinary strength to open the door that Chuck and Tracy jammed with a pipe. As the samurais are about to catch the journalist, the 2 robots suddenly freeze into place. The mechanic Harry Croft suddenly emerges and tells them that it's safe to leave because the robots have been disabled. Later on, Morton and the guards arrive in the area and find one of the samurais on the floor. Harry takes them back to the tunnels and assures them that the robots wouldn't go there because the humidity will screw up their circuits. Harry gives them directions to get back to their rooms, but the reporters convince him to take part in an interview for Tracy's new program. Harry then takes them to a corner of the power plant and introduces them to a faceless robot that he named Clark. When Chuck asks about his experience at the resort, Harry recounts that he and Frenchie once had a wild night with the robot girls from Westworld. Chuck tries to ask him about his relationship with Frenchie, but Morton and the guards arrive to take the reporters back to their rooms. The reporters express their frustration that they can't interview with some employees, but Morton claims they can speak with anyone they want as long as they inform Duffy. Upon their return to the room, Chuck tells Tracy that Frenchie got killed while he was trying to give him a story about Dulles. Chuck notes that he never got the story, but he obtained Frenchie's clipping about bankers, politicians, and other prominent people from across the globe. Chuck notes that all the people in Frenchie's clipping were guests and Delos. He wants to talk to Harry again to find out what he knows, but Tracy points out that they might not allow her to return with the TV crew if they keep breaking the rules. Chuck asks for her help one last time and promises to cease investigation if he doesn't get anything substantial. The very following day, Duffy takes the reporters to the inner space chamber where they are testing a new machine that takes a video recording of people's dreams, and you can probably guess what will happen afterwards. Tracy tries the machine and dreams that she's inside a large house. As she explores the place, she sees the gunslinger by the stairs. As she runs away from him, she gets captured by people in red jumpsuits. The gunslinger soon barges into the room where they keep her captive and shoots her captors one by one. Later, the gunslinger takes her to bed and they make love. You know what I mean? When Tracy wakes up, Chuck leaves her behind and heads back to the tunnel to look for Harry. As soon as Chuck finds him, he shows him the picture of Frenchie's corpse and tells him that he was killed. Harry reveals that Frenchie was a workman like him, but he quit after a confrontation with Morton. Chuck asks Harry if he knows about the story that Frenchie was about to divulge. Harry is reluctant to tell him, so Chuck warns him that his bosses would treat him the same way they treated Frenchie. Harry agrees to help Chuck and takes him to an area off limits to human mechanics. When some robot workers arrive, the men jot down the access codes they used to get in. The pair tries the code as soon as the robots are gone, but the gate just won't open. When they return to the tunnels, Harry realizes that the security system must be identifying the robots with their eyes. Meanwhile, Tracy asks Morton and Duffy if she can interview Harry in her news program. Morton reveals they wanted to fire Harry long ago because his skills are no longer needed, but Duffy points out that they still need him to work in the wet areas. Later, Harry disables a robot by splashing it with water and takes off its face. Meanwhile, the technician starts using the data they gather from their tests to create Chuck's duplicate. Now, Harry soon returns to the restricted area with Chuck and Tracy to see if they can open the gate, After entering the access code, Harry wears the robot's face as a mask and shows it to the scanner. The gates soon open and the trio gets inside the restricted area where they see lab technicians examining Karvanovsky and Takaguchi. A while later, the technicians bring out the duplicates of Chuck and Tracy. Chuck decides and deduces that two men in chairs are also duplicates, and Delos has replaced the prominent people on Frenchie's list with their doubles. After the technicians strap the reporters' duplicate to chairs, they begin a procedure to load their family, their history, and social attitude into the doubles. Then Morton programs them to follow all of the company's instructions and kill their original. I mean, this is very, very creepy if you ask me. Imagine if this was in real life. As the trio flees from the area, Chuck stresses that they should go to their rooms and pack so they can get on the next flight out of the resort. I mean, I would get the heck out of there too. I don't know about you. Harry tells them to meet him at the power plant and have an hour so he can take them to a hiding place while waiting for the plane. As soon as the reporters return to their home, Chuck tries to call Arthur to tell him what they saw. But Duffy arrives and holds them at gunpoint, demanding him to put the phone down now. Duffy looks for Tracy in her room, but he doesn't see her because she's hiding behind the door. When Chuck asks why they bothered to create their doubles, Duffy reveals that their duplicate will write favorable articles about Delos to attract every prominent world leader. Duffy stresses that the duplicates are not robots but living beings created from genetic information they gather from the originals. Soon, Tracy comes out of the room and drops her luggage on Duffy. Chuck immediately lunges at him, causing him to drop his gun. As Chuck struggles to subdue Duffy, Tracy grabs his gun and waits until she gets a clear shot. She eventually shoots Duffy twice when he walks towards her. Oh, Tracy. After Duffy drops to the ground, Chuck cuts off his face and discovers that he's a robot. Chuck takes Tracy to Westworld and tells her to wait by the barn until he returns with Harry. Soon, Harry meets Chuck at the power plant, but he doesn't realize that he's a duplicate. Chuck eventually arrives at the plant only to witness his clone killing Harry. The clone soon spots him, so Chuck immediately flees from the area. At Westworld, Tracy encounters her clone, so she attempts to run. However, the clone notes it's no use because she already knows everything she plans to do since they have the same mind. The two women end up shooting at each other, but only one of them gets hit. Chuck engages his clone in a shootout at the tunnels, but the clone reminds her that they're both bad shooters. Chuck electrifies a platform and tries to lure his clone into it, but the clone discovers the trap. When Chuck runs out of ammo, he flees into Future World and climbs the scaffolding beside the space shuttle. The duplicate soon catches up to him, but he runs out of ammo as well, allowing Chuck to swing to the scaffolding on the other side. The two men eventually meet on the platform above the scaffolding and wrestle until one of them falls dead to the ground. When Tracy arrives at the power plant, Chuck suddenly grabs her and kisses her. On their way to the plane, they come across Morton, so they tell him that they had a wonderful time and they will write positive articles about the resort. As the two reporters reach the exit, Tracy's wounded clone arrives and tells Morton that the original survived. Chuck gives Morton the finger before boarding the cart that will take them to their plane. On the jet bridge, Chuck informs Tracy that he managed to contact Arthur and tells him the whole story. He asserts that it will be old news by the time they get home. Tracy notes that kissing her was not a very scientific way of finding out if she's the original, but Chuck contends that there are things that cannot be faked. I thank you for your time and I thank you for listening. If you have received value in this video, you know what to do. Thank you for your time and thank you for listening.